Hello, 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 hello. It is the Thursday Night Podcast, the best one. We're the best ones. We're the gang. We have me, the fat Irishman with the beard, Jamie, the handsome Irishman with the beard, and no David Royce this week. He's just off being sexy somewhere. So we have the equally sexy Camarino.
Wow, thank you. What an introduction. I mean, I'm from Massachusetts, so I've got some Irish in me for sure somewhere. So
everybody does.
Couple of Irishmen going.
Excellent.
I've just been fed free food, so you can't argue with that. That's always a good thing.
Happy days.
So let's get to a nicer format there for the people, so they can see our. There you go. They can see our handsomeness equally. So a lot to talk about this week in soccer terms, definitely Liverpool terms. I think the big thing for us is Liverpool-Napoli. The game. What an experience that was. Where did we go wrong, do we think? Camarino.
Better question. Where didn't we go wrong? It was so bad. Honestly, guys, I was watching it. I was at work and in Zoom meetings and watching it on one screen. And let me tell you, I think I had more heart into that game watching it for about 50 minutes, all told, than the players out there on the pitch. I mean, I'll use the Goldbridge line of statues, usually saying it about Harry Maguire. That's what we looked like the other night. I mean, it was just so poor, and it was just a lack of effort all the way around. You know, you can say there's still some injuries that are hindering us too, but you got to get more quality of the players on the pitch. So the high line went all wrong. It looked like they had never even played with it. Beaten again in the midfield. Not the worst battering we've had in the midfield, but still pretty bad. And again, just wondering kind of what the strategy is here. And Klopp finally says, yeah, it seems like we're figured out. Yeah, well, that's been the case. And we still haven't seen a change in tactics. So for me, I mean, effort was the biggest part of it. But again, for the fourth or fifth time this season, guys, it looks like a team who's never played with each other, like just totally disjointed out there.
Jamie, what do you think?
I mean, Cam's 100% right, isn't he? Like, I mean, you asked the question, where did we go wrong? We went wrong by drawing Napoli again, didn't we? Because we haven't got a great track record over there. They're a team that's flying high. We're not. You know, they've got, you know, I heard a lot of people talking about, well, they're missing quite a lot of their spine and blah, 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 but they've got great talent coming through. You know, that young kid, what's his name? Cook, I can't even pronounce it, but Simeone as well. I mean, great talent. And, you know, at home, they were up for it, and we just couldn't get out of the blocks. And, you know, it's just, it's kind of hard to take, but not really, because we were kind of all waiting to be put to the test. You know, thankfully, there's 5 games left in the Champions League, and we can look to make our mark on Ajax and Rangers, and see if we can't bring Napoli back to Anfield and see if we can make a better show of ourselves.
I mean, it was a poor game in general. Like, just like from players to tactics and even managerial decisions to an extent, because we talked about whether Nunez or Firmino would start, and it looked like we all got that wrong. Really, it was because we were all like big on Firmino keeping his run going, but he didn't really achieve much when he was on the field, did he?
No, not enough for me.
No.
So my kind of controversial question is not just taking Napoli on its own, but the season is going so far. Are we heading into a crisis?
It certainly feels like it. I mean, we've also said that before, to be fair, 2 years ago. But the comparison to 2 years ago isn't even apples to apples anymore, because that was legit. Like, so many injuries. Your talismans are getting injured. No fans in the stands. This is the opposite. I mean, there's just no intensity, and contrary to the book. And it's the guys who you've trusted for so long who just aren't coming through for the most part. I mean, we could have obviously he didn't feature in this game, but Henderson's been an issue this year. I think a lot of people thought that it was probably 1 year too long, but honestly, Fabinho has been one of the worst players in the squad the whole season. Van Dijk's had a couple of just shockers. Even Gomez, who I thought was in a pretty good run of form, was just horrendous yesterday. So it's not like, oh, we'll be fine when these guys come back, which is what happened last year. We had a really good year. It's like you're not quite in the Man United territory from last year, but the quote from Ralph Rangnick last year was like, yeah, we need 10 new players. And that's what it feels like right now. And I think when Klopp says an overhaul, he probably means a change in strategy more than anything, which is a good place to start. But yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere in terms of the great season we had last year. You couldn't, you would have been silly to say, oh, well, maybe Van Dijk's here too long. And, maybe Salah doesn't have it anymore. But the more we go into this season, it's like maybe some of these guys have been held on to a little too long. So to answer your original question, crisis seems a little strong, but it's coming thick and fast, and it's coming at the worst time. So many games before the World Cup. You're a week past the end of the transfer window, and who knows where you're going to be January when the transfer window opens up again. And I don't even think that's something you can hang your hat on, because there's so many changes need to be made. It's not one guy that needs to come into this team right now.
Jamie, what do you think? Are we in crisis, or have we been here before and it just gets better at some point?
I think we're dangerously close. I think the good thing is, things in football can change overnight almost. I think we can play ourselves back into some resemblance of form. And, with the World Cup this year and games coming thick and fast, maybe that's a blessing in disguise where we don't have time to dwell on these poor performances and results. But I think we're backs to the wall time now. I think what we need is to show a bit of grit and determination in the back line first. If we can start stringing together passes, that would be lovely.
You could start.
Yeah. I hate this. I hate to go full nuclear mode and say, oh yeah, it's definite crisis mode. But we're incredibly close to that situation. Another loss, and people are already talking about Klopp out and all this sorts of stuff. So it's like we're dangerously close to crisis.
Running out of excuses.
Yeah,
running out of things, and I said this on Twitter. I don't think this should happen by any means, but how many Premier League teams, especially at the stature of Liverpool, would have sacked the manager at this point in the season? I don't want to do that. I really don't. I believe in Klopp, but it's just funny to think, if this was Chelsea, if this was Man United, if this was, we haven't seen City have a crisis like this in a long time. If this was Tottenham, they all would have sacked the manager by now.
But they all have that previous MO of doing that.
Right.
And,
this
given the
feels
fact,
like one of those headline nights that's just like, forget.
Sure.
But
Especially with Tuchel, which we'll get onto. But I mean, we're not that sort of snap decision club, even given the fact that he's just signed his new contract and all the rest of it. And there's brighter times ahead. And I will sort of hang on to the glimmer of hope that things can and will change in football overnight. Something drastic has to happen though, and we need a good hard look at ourselves in the mirror, and certainly those 11 that started the first 45 against Napoli, it better be staring into a mirror.
I think. Do we put much store in the sort of the trope of Klopp having a 7-year meltdown in the same way that Mourinho has his 3-year meltdown? Because it seems that apparently, unless I read it wrong, in Mainz, he quit in the 7th year. He had taken him as far as he could go. Dortmund was the same. They had that dip at the first half of the season. Are we the same, or are we using hindsight to kind of confirm our own biases, maybe in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little out there to say that he's taken Liverpool as far as they can go because in terms of history, before my lifetime, we've seen they can go farther. He probably did take Dortmund about as far as he could in the way the Bundesliga is, and definitely the same with Mainz. But I think it's not as mathematical as that, but I think it's tough to deny that there is a bit of a loyalty issue at this point. And we've kind of gotten away with it with some of the guys he held on to. You know, I don't think most teams would have held on to Adam Lallana, for example, that long. But Klopp liked him, and we had a world-class team around him, so it didn't hinder us at all. Divock Origi, the same way. Doesn't really matter in the end. But now when it's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 guys, again, the hindsight's 2020. I wouldn't have said that at the end of last season. It's easier to say that. So I don't think it's quite as mathematical, but I mean, clearly there needs to be a change in how he does things for sure. But I think he can take this team even further, or this club even further, not in the way that it's molded right now, probably the team anyway.
Jamie, what do you think?
I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. You know,
everybody,
everybody posting the Dortmund last season and things like that. You know, you can draw a straight line and make it connect to wherever the hell you want. But I think like Cam was saying, I think he hasn't run his course. I think there's a lot more to do, and you know, God knows with what's going on right now, we need him more than anything, and he has provided us with the best days in Liverpool Football Club in 30 years. You know, the league, the Champions League, he's won it all. And he's done it with us, and we owe him a bit of gratitude. We owe him a bit of respect, and he definitely deserves the chance to pull us through. And yeah, it's just it's tough to take right now. But like I said, we're what, 5 games in. It's although we're all doom and gloom and crisis is the words we're using and all the rest. You know, I firmly believe it can change in an instant. No, I'm not going to say that we're going to go on and win the quadruple this year, you know, but I still think there's a lot to play for in this season, in this league, in the Champions League, and everything. I think we can pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, qualify through our group, and make inroads up the league. You know, it's not beyond the realms of possibilities.
So like. I think everybody would agree that we owe Klopp, as supporters, we owe him at the support for a start. We owe him time, and you know, not to be reactionary, because he has given us some, as you say, some of the greatest days we've had in the last 30 years. But do those greatest days compare to Joe Cole snatching a 1-0 victory against Bolton under Roy Hodgson? Are we at that level yet?
I don't know about that. But maybe
I need a good laugh, Micah. Thanks, man.
I know West Brom isn't in the league anymore, but yeah, maybe a draw against the 16th or 18th place team and thanking the fans afterwards is just what we need, I think, for a more recent Klopp example.
But in a series now, kind of going back, like I think we might mention this either last week, Jamie, or maybe it was on the watch along last weekend, but it's almost kind of going back to what Camarino was saying. It almost feels like the Shankly era, like the end of the old team in the 70s, and then the new team where he decided that he'd held on to St. John for too long, he'd held on to Hunt for too long, he'd held on to Ron Yates for too long, and then brought in Keegan, brought in Highway, brought in Brian Hall. Does it feel like maybe, you know, we're getting to that stage with Klopp, with Salah, with Firmino, and maybe even with Van Dijk, where we've held on to them for too long, and it's time that they burn out on somebody else's watch rather than his?
I mean, you do make a good point. I think the passing of the baton back then was, you know, in the boot room days was probably a bit easier. I don't know if Yeah, I mean it's difficult. You know, I hear a lot of people saying that we sold the wrong player in Mane versus Mo. Maybe there's, you know, that you could argue that, I guess, but I feel like we definitely needed a couple of new players in, and you know we've got a couple of youth players, and we haven't been helped by injuries, and we know all that, but young players like Calvin Ramsey and things like that would still trying to integrate into the team. I think it's always going to be a difficult transition to because we look, we've conquered all of Europe, right? We've done so well, and we are kind of holding ourselves to a higher standard. And you know, a lot of people will say, "Well, how can the same team be so competitive last season and forget how to play football this season?" You know, it's a strange enigma, football, and it can change overnight, which I'm hammering home because I'm hoping it will change overnight. But yeah, it's difficult to see. It's difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I genuinely do believe if we start to string a few results together, I know we've got Wolves coming up next and Ajax and Rangers in the Champions League. I think there's good possibilities to make some ground and start the legwork for our overhaul or our re-evolution or genesis of the next team that's going to come along. It's difficult. I know exactly what you're saying about letting, you know, big players like Salah go to pastures new in this twilight of their career, but it's difficult. It's a real difficult situation we've got ourselves in, and you know, money is always the answer, you know, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, is my point there. You know, you can spend a whole bunch of money. Take a look at Chelsea. You know, you can spend a whole bunch of money, throw money at a problem, and create 5 new problems for yourselves.
Cameron, you know, as our resident purveyor of all things the past with the awesome Time Machine videos, do you see any echoes of the past? As I said, mainly the Shankly thing, because that was such an iconic era and change of the guard. But also maybe in the Kenny Dalglish to Graham Souness transition, where he maybe felt he got rid of, Souness got rid of players way too early. Do you see any echoes of the past, or is this a unique problem for this time and place?
I think there's definitely some parallels to draw there. I think they're both situations that were handled poorly. But the difference was Bob Paisley was a really good manager and Graham Souness was an okay manager. I think he's maybe has a little bit too much thrown at him by Liverpool fans, but it was a bit ahead of his time, weirdly enough. But the comparison that I've been thinking of about this team and sticking with this manager is actually drawing to Sir Alex Ferguson, because he didn't really have the same dilemma of holding on to guys too long per se, but he kind of has that great run of league titles right at the beginning of the Premier League, and all of a sudden you can see Arsenal kind of creeping up on him. Arsene Wenger, they win it in 98, and then the same thing kind of happens around 05, 06 when Mourinho comes to Chelsea, and it's like United's knocked off their perch again, but both times he's able to adjust, and they do have a little bit more of the money angle of bringing in guys like a Ruud van Nistelrooy and, you know, developing a Ronaldo and getting a Wayne Rooney, but they always bought from a position of strength, and I think that was the problem with Shankly is he didn't. They kind of waited, and it just seems like that's the issue now is they didn't buy from a position of strength, and it's so easy for me to sit here and say that now, but again, I'll bring it up again. If you had asked me in May, I would have said, yeah, they probably need a midfielder. But other than that, no, not really. And I think the issue is the core of your team, almost all of your team, you're either in your 30 to 31, 32-year range, or you're 2 or 3 years away from your prime. And we rode out these guys' primes really well. But you either have your Van Dijks, your Salahs, those guys who are 30 and above, or you got your Harvey Elliott's, Trent even, who might be in his prime now, not this year notwithstanding. Your Fabio Carvalho's, your Darwin Nunez's, those guys are a couple years away from really hitting their primes, you'd think. And so it's like, again, it's not one player you bring in as the stopgap. We all want Jude Bellingham. That's a great signing, but he's also going to be 19, 20 years old. And so it's like, where is the leadership and also the quality coming from for the next couple of years? Because right now you have one, but not the other. I'm sure, we've seen it in the past. Jordan Henderson's a terrific leader. Same with Milner, same with Van Dijk, but the quality isn't there. And, the quality you're banking on for the next couple of years are all really young guys. So it's a lot of fixes here, which I think Paisley did have to deal with in the 70s. And he got it right. Graham Souness didn't. So it's also about bringing in the right guy. Like Jamie said, it's not, you don't have that boot room in here. If it is, if this doesn't get solved the next year or two and Klopp is out, you don't have that boot room to go to. It's kind of like, I keep using analogies here. It's kind of like quarterbacks in the NFL, where some are not going to get you to that next level, but they're too hard to come by. And that's what managers are like. And Chelsea just pisses right through them. But most teams are like, can I get rid of this guy? Like, what's out there that's better for me? Burnley probably could have got a better manager at some point, but they're like, it's too big a gamble. You know what I mean? I'd rather have Sean Dyche stay in the league. And then once they don't, he's out. So, clearly Steven Gerrard's not the lineage, it looks like, in terms of the manager's box. And, they're few and far between. So you got two big issues of trying to find those guys in their prime. And if you are going to move on and try something new, it's not like those world-class managers like you've had are growing on trees. So I think that is the biggest difference from the 70s.
So I want to kind of get on to the specifics of the game, but just to kind of touch on something you said there, Cameron, I want to get Jamie's opinion on this. With the almost the talisman players, the franchise players of the team being over 30 years old, is it something that, because Klopp said we need to maybe do a reinvention of sorts, look at the tactics again, is it a case that we may have to stop the pressing game as long as we have those players on the field, because maybe they've lost that half yard? Or do we continue the way we are and then just slowly replace them and accept a few years of transition in the meantime?
I don't see Klopp doing it. Personally, I think we all would sacrifice a bit of our press if it shored up our spine. We're spineless right now. We're being picked apart by teams that shouldn't have a look in. It's it's damning evidence. Napoli created like ungodly amount of chances against us, and I think after last season and such a long haul for everybody, and Klopp likes his small teams and all the rest of it, I think, first of all, we're not demanding enough of our big players. I think we should be demanding more from these players. Well, certainly more than they're giving us right now. I'm not sure if the gegenpressing is adding to the overall stress on our on the legs of our players. But I don't know. I think we just need to demand more from them. I think the pressing isn't the issue, because we do have times in the game, like against Napoli, we had maybe one or two times where the press was working. I guess we're in a fearful territory right now, because the pressing seems to be adding insult to injury, and the fact that we're already goosed, we're already done, we're all gassed, and the injuries, are mounting up, and maybe that's because of our energy levels as well. It's difficult to say.
Just I kind of want to touch on that. I want to ask Cam Marino about this one. Is in my experience, pressing, and we play an offside trap. We press correctly. You have to play with a flat back 3-4-5, whatever you want. That pushes up to meet the press to reduce that space in between the players and in between the lines. But Napoli took that apart yesterday. They absolutely made a mockery of our entire pressing. And from my view of the whole thing, it seemed like it was because we didn't actually get the pressure quick enough. So we could talk about like the legs being tired, but Cam, do you think maybe we are mentally tired because we can't be switched on all the time, waiting for that transition to happen?
Yeah, I think that plays a huge part of it. And I mean, it's something we talked about in the beginning, that lack of effort. That's usually more a mental thing than a physical thing. And each game, it feels like Trent and Robbo just have something better to do, let alone the center backs. And, we can go back to Van Dijk not challenging that shot from Sancho that ends up being a goal, or Gomez and Fabinho just standing there yesterday for whatever it was, the second or the third goal. So yeah, I think it is a bit of a mental thing. And in terms of if they can abandon it, I see some of these players and I think, well, what are they without the way that we play? And I think of Andy Robertson. I think of Luis Diaz, who I think is an excellent player when we're losing. Would love him to start off a little bit better. But I just think, well, these guys were bought and molded for this style of play. I love Andy Robertson, I really do, and I think at some points the last couple of years he absolutely has been the left back and the best left back in the world. But is he that way when you're not playing that way, or when he can't, run 10 miles a game and chase everything down? I just don't know that he is, and yeah, I think there's a lot of mental fatigue there, and I don't know if that's something you can see coming as a player or a manager, I guess, to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I know we certainly didn't see it coming as fans because we've seen them go again before.
I kind of I want to make 2 points. The first point is that just harken back to the old days. It is nice to see, as you mentioned, it was a Firmino and Gomez, emulating the great players of the past by not doing anything exactly like that great player Joe Cole used to do. They defended exactly as well as he would in that moment. But this is more for Jamie because he might understand where I'm coming from with this. It sort of, for me, reminds me of the Ireland team under Jack Charlton, who also played like a prototype pressing game, but got old. It got aged out. And even though we had these young players like the wonderful Phil Babb and the amazing Gary Kelly, the only person to try a header on the ground twice in his career. But you couldn't see it happening because you were so invested in it. And there was tactically nothing wrong with the Ireland team. They're just, the bodies weren't able to do it anymore. They were all aging out. Aldridge was like 32. Quinn was, he was in his 30s as well, but he managed to go for another 105 years. Do you see that maybe we tried this evolution this season with bringing the fullbacks inside rather than pushing them high? And do you think that maybe Klopp tried to mitigate, the way other players are aging to change that tactic, and maybe he's thinking he got it wrong?
I think it's a great point. I think the fullbacks, wing backs, whatever you want to call them, second and third and fourth strikers, it's maddening. I think there's a lot of waiting around and waiting for somebody else to do something amazing, whether it be creatively, defensively, or just taking the game by the scruff of the neck like Diaz was doing. I don't know. The wing-back situation is definitely something that needs to be tweaked. And by tweaked, I mean very seriously looked at. The the age issue in midfield and the legs issue for Mo hasn't played well in a long time. I think he's got like 8 goals in play from like, I think I read it earlier on. It's a really long time. He's only got 8 goals. It's worrying.
I'll go on better for you, Jamie, because I looked it up. He's had 2 shots on target in 5 games in the league this season.
That is not
for a guy who's not like 100% clinical. By the way, I mean that's
major breadwinner.
Yeah,
major breadwinner. Mo Salah has had 2 shots. I mean, he has been glued to the wing, which I don't really want to see. You want Mo Salah hanging around the box and being able to influence the game. He's not going to do a whole lot when he's out there with Harvey and Trent, and they're occupying a 10-yard space. I think there's a few things going on right now. I think there's a bit of slack. It's like where we would usually go from point A to point C, skipping point B. We now are going from A to B to C instead of just going from A to C and then C to B. Do you know what I mean? In that triangle formation, we're playing that extra pass. We're waiting for somebody to do something, and with a lot of those injured players out, and a lot of our mainstay players not performing up to top speed, it's everybody's just hands on hips, waiting for the game to evolve and for somebody to do something great, and it's not making for good, easy watching games. It's really concerning, and that Mo Salah 2 shots is ridiculous.
Before we get to the next point, I just want to point out, Macca, you guys both know those teams much more than I do, but it was barely a month ago that Jamie and I were singing "Ooh Ah Paul McGrath" at the Duck and Dive in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm
true.
a huge Jackie fan, and now if we start playing the team that Jack built, we'll put Mourinho to shame. I'll tell you that.
Jack Charlton's a sainted man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So I want to get specifically to the game, just because there are some things that I kind of looked up tactically. Okay, so we talked about Salah kind of hugging the wing a lot more. These are his first half touches. They're not really the touches in areas that you want your main goal scorer to be taking, really, are they?
Not at all.
I'm assuming he had a shot in 90 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was that turn up at the top of the penalty area. Am I right?
Yeah. And then another one that was
they came down
a weak one or something like that, wasn't it? That just a daisy cutter into the goalkeeper. But those were his first half touches. They're to me the touches of a winger, not your goal scorer. Correct?
Which is funny because he was it last year where he got the golden boot or whatever, scored, and somebody called him a striker. He's like a winger. I don't know. He's an enigma, but he's not influencing the game enough out there.
No, and I think he's a name that doesn't come up in our discussions about who was shit out there because you barely remember that he's playing. I mean, he's so out of the game so often, and so I've probably taken it a bit easy on him too because you're just like, oh yeah, Salah did play today. It's like what Coutinho used to do every 3 or 4 games. You'd forget he was out there, but it's just every week with Salah. And I don't know if it's more of a tactics thing or if it's just him being out of form. But either way, you don't get him going. You don't get much going in your season. And this is real disheartening to see where these touches are coming on the pitch. And I think part of that is also Napoli are easy on the eyes this year. They were playing a pretty good brand of football, especially yesterday. And you need more touches for Salah in the box. You don't want him breaking out quite this much in the middle of the field.
We saw a quote there from Alan Walnut, and he said that in every game this season we've had the highest percentage of possession, including last night. But ultimately, we don't want all the possession, really, do we? As nice as that is to have, we kind of want all the shots on target, especially.
I mean, you can't win the game without the ball, right? We all know that. You have to have a high percentage of possession, but possession doesn't win games. You know, we go back to Brendan Rodgers, you know, all the possession in the world.
Not that we're bashing him.
Not that we're bashing Brendan Rodgers. Couldn't have that. But in all seriousness, I mean, Alan, what do you think? Maybe would you give up some of that possession for a bit more defensive solidity? Would you give up a bit of that pressing? I mean, let us know in the comments, lads. I know you and Jim Hancock there are talking away in the comments, but we've got to get the ball working for us, not us working the ball. You know, I was taught by a good couple of coaches when I was younger, and the thing to do was my coach would, you know, if you were trying to be a showboat in a game and you were trying to hog the ball, what he would do is he'd put you on the byline and he'd say, right, you're gonna have a race now, but you're gonna have a race with a football. I'll give you a 10-second head start and I'm gonna kick the ball and we're gonna see who wins. The ball wins all the time. Ball travels faster than the man. So you make the ball work. And, you know, I just go back to what I was trying to say about the A to B to C. Instead of going from A to B, we used to go from A to C and bypass that second easy pass. You know, you have to make the ball do the work. You have to be a bit adventurous. And I think right now we're just seeing a bit of pedestrian football. We're bystanders. Do you know, we're out there, we're playing with the ball, but it's not like we're expecting somebody to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and it's just not happening. You know, you have to make it happen. You have to be a bit adventurous.
So just because I put the thing up there, because I know he came off early, he was subbed out, Salah, I think, wasn't he? But these were touches in the second half when we needed goals. So just to kind of to add on to what you were saying there, Jamie, about making things happen. Cam, are they? You know, does that give you hope that Salah is the man to look to when we're 3-0 down at halftime? We were 3-0 down or 2-0? It was 3-0, wasn't it?
3.
Yeah,
it was 3.
You know, this is your highest paid player of all time, talisman striker, and these are his touches to try and get us back into the game. It's not exactly encouraging, is it?
No. And I think going back to Jamie's point, it's the same thing what I said earlier. It's just like it feels like these guys haven't played with each other. It's so bizarre to watch. You know, just no cohesiveness in there, and Salah's definitely a part of that. I mean, how many times over the last couple of years have I watched Liverpool score and make these primal noises because I'm like, oh, how the heck did they see that? That's beautiful. I haven't said that once this year. It's just there's no link-up play, and Salah's such a huge part of that. I mean, obviously, we've had the arguments over the last couple of years with people who think he's just a tap-in merchant when he's really the talisman of that attack. And it's really disheartening to see that. Like you say, when you need the goals, I mean, it's a simple – I'm no coach, but it's a simple formula. When Mo Salah has won 3 golden boots in the last 5 years and you're down a couple goals and you need him, I'd probably try to get him the ball a lot. And it seems like that's not part of the strategy. But then again, it doesn't seem like Salah's getting in the right positions anyway, even if that is the strategy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that sucks to see. And I know it's nice to be able to bring a Diogo Jota off the bench, who I think is still poised to have a good year for Liverpool. But at the end of the day, you got to focus on a guy like Salah and say, well, what's he doing to help us win? Because no one's doing the right thing in these last 2 games, really. And that's who you laser your focus on.
I agree with you, and I don't want to focus too much on Salah because it kind of sometimes can sound like that you're blaming Salah almost, like, you know, that we're expecting too much from him. So I just want to bring up, these are Firmino's first half touches. So he is nominally our number 9, our striker. I mean, now he likes to drop.
You couldn't tell, could you? You couldn't tell.
That if you didn't know who this player was and asked what position was he playing, what would you say?
I'd say
anything
that
but
Firmino.
goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Anything but goalkeeper.
It's almost like a box-to-box midfielder.
He's
It's
crazy.
like Gerrard in his prime. Do you think that we're misusing Firmino, by letting him run that freely? Because we know he's great when he finds the spaces. But do we want those spaces to be at the edge of the D, or any of the two fullback positions as they seem to be there? It seems a bit redundant to have him do that much work. What do you think?
I've definitely found myself this season asking myself out loud, what the hell are you doing there, Bobby? The one thing I will say is when he does go back there into our own half and pick up the ball and offload it, he isn't one to hang around. He will get on his bike and follow that up and eventually get into the box, and got a goal there last week by doing exactly that. So I definitely would want it curtailed, because anybody else can do that. And I know Bobby does it. Bobby does a lot of things that nobody else can do. Anybody can do the dropping back and getting the ball. I want Bobby to drop back to a certain point, and then that's for other players to do. Your Jan Molby types that never left the semicircle. Your Fabinho's, your Hendersons, your whoever else. Take your pick. Bobby, do that at the edge of the D. Do that outside the 18. Do that in the final third. But by no means do I need to see Bobby Firmino in that middle third of the pitch. And I granted, there's times when he takes it upon himself to do whatever he wants, and that's fantastic. But I would rather anybody else doing that dirty work. I would rather see him doing the finesse part in the final third.
I think the thing I've been yelling the most about Bobby is, I'm like, does he know he plays for us? Does he know we're wearing red tonight? This wouldn't be so bad if he could hang on to the ball, man. I mean, how many times a game I'm like, it's the same thing. I'm just like, where's Firmino going here? What's he going to do here? In 2018, he pulls this off. He's not pulling that off in the year of our Lord 2022. Let me tell you, he loses the ball far too much to be anywhere on the pitch, to be honest with you. And out and out number 9. If Darwin Núñez is losing the ball as much, you're thinking, oh well, he's a striker. That's a goal scorer. That's a poacher. That's not what Bobby does. And so many times in the past when we have needed to settle down, it's been great to have the ball at his feet. And I know he's always been dangerous without the ball, but it seems like now these days he's only dangerous without the ball and some of the time. And when you don't have the serial goal scorers on the wings, like you've had the last couple of years, then you become less valuable when you can't do anything with the ball anymore. And that's sucks to say, because he's been such a great servant for the club, and I love Bobby Firmino. I thought he was going to play a huge role this year, probably because I got on my knees for him in one of the Time Machine episodes, but he's hurting us way more than he's helping us at this point. I know he's had some bright spots. Bournemouth, everybody had a good game. I thought he had a good game overall against Newcastle, gets the goal there as well. But yeah, he seems like another one in hindsight where you're like, yeah, maybe it's just been a year too long, and wouldn't need to sell him because there was no replacement that they were going to bring in. But I just don't know if he's up to this level anymore. And that's a good way to show that the touch map there was a good way to show that not only is he probably not at that level, but a lot of the team isn't when he has to go and retrieve the ball that far up the pitch.
So just by comparison, I've pulled up the right diagram here, because here's Núñez's touches when he was on the field, and they're almost similar in their given the role that he has in where he ends up getting the ball. And sort of watching the SD, we talked about this when he signed for me, I think with Timuchin, was he reminded me of the Andy Carroll we thought we were going to get, ponytail and all. But this is the Andy Carroll we got, was the player that was supposed to be the frontline leader of the attack, sending anywhere but the central area of the box. Have we got a problem with our number 9s in general? Are we Are we asking too much of them and not restricting them to where the number 9 is supposed to do their job?
I mean, we need to get Aldo or Rushy in there and just get him
Rushy's
in the
part
box.
to Raf. Don't forget that. Rushy is part to Raf, so we might get some use out of those crosses.
I think those 5 touches on the left hand side of the box there. I seen him out there, and I'm thinking, Darwin, get inside. You leave that for Diaz. Leave that for whoever else is outside on the wide. You need to be the focal point. You need to be the one trying to beat the last man. I don't know. It's. I guess when things aren't going for us, we're left to contemplate all these tiny nuances of everybody, not doing what they're supposed to be. When Verge was off his game, then Gomez is off his game, and Trent was off his game, and Rob was. So when all these little things are adding up, I think it's like it's all too easy to pick out the flaws. And like you were saying, Mac, we're not trying to, hang these fellas out to dry or single anybody out, because nobody really came out with any blemish free, let's just say, except for Diaz and
yeah.
Except for Diaz and maybe Harvey, but like it is too easy to pick apart all the flaws when all of us are doing poor. But we're known from starting from the front. That's our press. Our Bobby does it well, and yes, gets dragged deep. But Nunes, I don't. Maybe it's because he's a newcomer and hasn't got it yet. But maybe it is a bit worrying. Maybe we do need an out and out striker in there to just tell them to be selfish. Tell them to have a fucking shot. beat a man.
Yeah. I think the point on the left side of the box is damning too, because you said who should be getting that? Luis Diaz. And at this point in the match, even with the season he's having, Salah's not on the pitch. Diaz is the only guy out there right now wearing red that can take on some defenders and get past them. And so he should be doing that work on the wing. And we all thought we were going to see kind of a change in style of play with a new out-and-out number 9 here, a guy who not really arsed with the buildup of the goal. He just wants to score the goal, and we just we have not seen that yet, and it's perplexing, to say the least.
Look at that. That is a beautiful looking touch back.
Yeah.
That's just the first half.
That's a Klopp winger.
I found that once Salah came off the field, I thought the attack was a lot more mobile because we didn't have a reference point anymore. We had 3 players, Diaz, Nunes, and then Jota, who just moved freely. So there's Jota's second half touches, quite mobile, but again, dropping back too far maybe.
Yeah, similar to Salah's.
Say again?
No, I think the Jota map is similar to Salah's. There's
Diaz's first half touches. They are traditional left wing. They're almost the mirror of Salah on the other side. So it looks like we everybody has been correct, and Salah's job is to stay out on the wing, and Luis Diaz's is to stay out on the wing. And it's not working for us, is it? And especially because the midfield isn't, taking the space that should be created by having 2 natural wide players.
And we talked about Salah being out too wide the whole season. I'm wondering, has there been a chance, or a goal that you guys have seen and been like, okay, that's why Klopp's doing that. You can't do that unless Salah's out making plays that wide? Because I don't think I have.
The closest one I can think of is the Firmino one that Salah provided.
That's fair.
But I mean, that was almost random rather than planned. It's not like we tried that 20 times in a row and then it eventually worked. It was literally improvised.
A ball in and a first-time shot.
Yeah, and we have seen goals like that the last couple of years when Salah wasn't out that wide. But there just hasn't been the moment where I was like, see, that's why Klopp does it. and no other teams do, and this is why we're winning. I just haven't seen that under this strategy. Again, I'm no coach, but I just haven't had that this year. So I'm wondering, is it the midfield? Is it just been so – I mean, it has been pretty bad in the midfield. We can all agree. Is it just not winning the ball in the midfield and owning the midfield that's doing it in? I don't know.
Nice segue there because I spent the whole 30 seconds on these diagrams today. This is the midfield first half passes into the attacking third from open play from yesterday.
What?
Oh.
Now, there are under fives teams that can play more passes into the box in 45 minutes.
On a full pitch.
Disgusting.
On a full pitch. I mean, and here's the second half when we had Milo and we had Thiago on.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just from open play. I mean, we got a lot more from throw-ins and free kicks and stuff like that, but we're not I know we have a specialist coach, but we're not a second.
They're paying the throw-in coach too much. They're taking it too serious.
Yeah, like we're not Tony Pulis. But this is worrying, isn't it? That maybe this is why Firmino keeps dropping back into the areas he drops in, because who else is going to do the damage from those areas? Yeah. It's a tad disappointing to see that from the point of view that we've said as supporters we need midfield and we need reinforcements, and we've been proved right pretty much, because that's a bad amount of generation, isn't it, for creating chances?
That's woeful.
Yeah, if you showed me that and said, okay, which Merseyside team is this? Never in a million years would I say, look, that's Everton stuff. That is brink of relegation.
That's not even Tranmere stuff.
Yeah.
It's not even Tranmere over stuff.
Marine. Maybe.
Do we think that maybe and we probably want to wrap up the Liverpool stuff because we could go on for hours with this one. But do we think that maybe, we've had been spoiled for such attacking riches that the midfield have just gotten used to giving them the ball and letting them do their magic. And now that they can't, we don't know what to do to create it from other areas.
Yeah, I think before you go, Jamie, I was just thinking, we were the team that always created from the wing backs. And again, when they look so disinterested and so out of sorts, it really exposes the flaws. I mean, even in that season 2 years ago, Robertson and Trent played almost the whole year. So there was kind of that light at the end of the attacking tunnel. Right now, when they're just not on it at all, it's really tough to get that kind of build-up play that they need in the style they play.
It's gone from having light at the end of the tunnel to that tunnel movie starring Sylvester Stallone, which was god awful.
So let's AFI top 100, I don't think.
Let's move on from Liverpool and move on to the other big story of the week: Tuchel being sacked by Chelsea, and then replaced by Graham Potter. What do we think of that, Jamie?
Shocking. I mean, it is and it isn't shocking.
And properly Northern Irish. Properly Northern Irish there, Jamie. Shocking.
Shocking. That's shocking. No, I mean, look, they get beat, and I think it was Rio Ferdinand and the boys on I think it was BT Sport they were talking about. You're like, nobody was talking about him losing his job. Nobody was talking about, should he be worried for his job? But it just comes out of the blue, and maybe you're thinking, what's the new Yank owner called?
Bowley, Todd Bowley or something.
Yeah. So you're thinking, maybe he's not like Abramovich. Maybe he'll see how this goes, and nope, see him
straight in.
Yeah, see him MO, see him status quo, and out the door he goes. I mean, the man's won trophies for them very recently. He's
including the most coveted one.
Exactly, a highly coveted manager, and knows his stuff. It's just a joke. I don't know the ins and outs of how much he got paid to have his contract released, but I'm sure it's a pretty penny. But I fear for somebody like Graham Potter. I really do. I think he's a great manager, but when Tuchel took the job, he was asked, "Are you worried about Chelsea's form of sacking managers?" And Tuchel was quite candid about it on his first day of work. He was like, "Yes and no." Well, I guarantee if you asked him the same question now, he'd be laughing his arse off because he's been healthily paid off. But I think if you were to ask Graham Potter the same question, in all honesty, he would be very worried for his job. Is he going to be given the season as a freebie, as a gimme? Probably, but that just means the pressure's on next year. And if he doesn't perform well this year, doesn't finish out well this year, then the pressure is going to be doubly on from the get-go next year. I mean, it's a poison chalice, and I think you're taking that job with the knowledge that you're going to be compensated well for your 12 months to 18 months work, because that's all you're going to get. And you may get a trophy or two out of it. But you couldn't pay me enough money to take that job. There must be so much stress and next to zero job satisfaction, because what's coming just around the corner.
Well, I would take it because I want a Hofner bass guitar and I need the money. Cam, I know you have a thought on it, but my question to you on top of your thought is, for Graham Potter, is this a David Moyes moment for him? Is he ready for a club this size?
Well, I would say first off, it's weird. I did hear Jamie was second in the running there for the Chelsea boss. So it's good that they get to hear, that they don't get the embarrassment of you turning them down. They just hear it on the podcast.
Jamie clearly has a wonderful soccer pedigree, but they couldn't understand the word he was saying. That's pretty much what he was now.
That's the problem.
Brendan Rodgers and me, we're like this. Me and Brendan, we go way back to the Chelsea days.
So to answer your question, I mean, I don't know that it will be too big for him, but like Jamie talked about, the pressure on this job, we might not even know it. And if I had to guess, I'm going to guess that he is going to have some mild success there. They're going to give up on him early. He's going to go to another decent-sized club at some point. He's going to be really successful, kind of the way Mo Salah, the player, was at Chelsea. You know what I mean? Because I really rate him as a manager, to be totally honest with you. And it's such a bizarre timing, too, because Chelsea have not been in great form, and over the last, whatever it is, 5 months or so in terms of game time, I saw something that Tuchel's win percentage was just about as good as Lampard's the last 5 months. So, not terrible by any means, but clearly they're not on a great run of form. But you also just got out of the window, which you spent a lot of money. I mean, it's like an American sport. It would be like firing your GM after the draft, after he put in place what he wanted for your team.
The club itself, though, has been in so much turmoil recently. It just is so crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point, too, of the club is like on the edge of the cliff right now, because we don't know what the near future holds for Chelsea without Abramovich, because that's been such the mainstay for 20 years, and they've just been able to buy away their problems, and credit to them. It's worked pretty well. But who knows? Is Todd Bowley going to be able – he's not going to be able to pony up that kind of money, you don't think. And they can't get the new stadium. And it's like, where does Chelsea's pedigree go from here? When do those top-level players say, you know what, I'm not going there either? They fire the manager every year, and I don't know what my place in the squad's going to be. And so I think Graham Potter's a good manager, and in a vacuum, I think that's a good hire for sure. And maybe they just did it because they knew they could get the guy. But I would say he is ready to coach at the top level. I just don't know if Chelsea is going to be that peak for him. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the trajectory and he's out after, a year or two. He goes to Wolves, has somewhere like that, brings them some success, and then he's on to a Tottenham or Liverpool years from now. And he is given the keys keys to the Ferrari, and he really gets to do it his way.
Let me throw this though.
I don't like David
boys.
Moyes at West Ham, by the way. Not that he is like this great manager, but and they're not in good form right now. But the last couple of years, he is, I think, done a really good job at West Ham when he's really gotten the keys to the Ferrari and let him do his own thing, which he was never going to get at United. And he had mild success at Everton for a couple of years. So, yeah, maybe there is a more direct comparison there. And that maybe David Moyes isn't ready for that big six, like he wasn't. And who can under that scenario that United had and still have. But he has enjoyed success when they really back him.
Well, I kind of want to throw a little kind of spanner in the works, especially with Graham Potter, is we're talking about the comparison to Moyes because it seems, same idea, a manager not quite ready to make that step up. But I'll throw another name out there. It's almost like Brendan Rodgers to Liverpool, isn't it? Because he had the same. We can say what we want about Brendan now because we've got hindsight and we've had we've had his reign. We've seen him at Celtic and we've seen him at Leicester, and he's clearly did a good job with those two clubs. So we can talk about his manager skills. We can talk about his personality, but his actual coaching skills are there to be seen for all. But in 2012, he had the reputation that Graham Potter has now as somebody who just needs a big club, and it didn't really work out as well as maybe as fans before Liverpool maybe hoped it would. Do we think Graham Potter might be in that close but no cigar category with the big club, and then has to rebuild his reputation yet again, having left what is a fantastic job with Brighton? What do you think, Jamie?
In me best Dublin brogue, I'm not bashing Brendan Rodgers now.
That's terrible. That's terrible, Dublin brogue.
It is. It's woeful. I think
you don't have enough. You don't have enough miserable contempt for life in your Dublin accent.
my neighbors to the
draw.
Yeah, my neighbors to the south. My neighbors to the south. Yeah. I mean, look, Brendan Rodgers. I totally get that comparison. Done great things with Swansea, and then gets the Liverpool job, and it's like it always did seem too much too soon for him. But that's life, you don't get these nice little stepping stones when you need them. It's feast or famine. And through his own through Potter's own success, he's been airlifted into Stamford Bridge, and I mean it's not going to take long for him to get settled and start getting straight to work. I mean, these Chelsea have got all the tools. Do you know what I mean? And I just hate to see it because Chelsea are just going to spurn him. They're gonna chew him up and waste him. And he probably won't be the same manager ever again. And I don't think Brendan Rodgers was the same manager ever again after Liverpool. That it changed him. He knew he was not out of his depth, but kind of, and when he went to Celtic, it was like big fish, small pond. He could
and
shine
Leicester to an extent, to be fair.
And Leicester, yeah. To be fair,
he really is the big fish there.
But yeah, I think. Look, I'm. Who am I to begrudge Graham Potter a move of the lifetime? And God knows I wouldn't do it. I would probably snap your arm off to take the Chelsea job. Potter must have just replied to that email a wee bit quicker than I did. But
he had an auto form ready.
Yeah.
You were typing. He just had a macro going and click send.
My PA got fired. But I mean, seriously, look, I can't begrudge him. I just, you have to question a manager's sanity in joining that outfit because, as we spoke about earlier on with Klopp and what he said after the game, he's like, my owners, fortunately, are a bit more savvy and believe in me to sort the problem out. Chelsea won't. Not at the drop of a hat, they will get rid of you, and everybody's replaceable. But what I did have to have a cheeky wee laugh at was Aubameyang's quote saying that he can't wait to play with Tommy Tuchel and gets a whole 45 minutes with him.
Classic. That is a damning example, though. They brought him in last week. Like, Tuchel pushed this over the line a week ago to play for his team. And all of a sudden, it's like, all right, Graham, come in, figure it out. But you better figure it out before the end of the season or else.
Right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, again, he has all the tools to succeed.
Yeah.
If he doesn't succeed, it probably won't be his fault. It'll probably be the Chelsea hierarchy's fault or the fans getting on his back. Or maybe the players and a bit of a mutiny there. But if he doesn't succeed, I don't think it won't be for want of trying. I think Graham Potter, like I said, he's got all the tools to succeed there. He's going to need all the luck he can.
Abramovich to Bowley, as the Who said, meet the new boss, same as the old boss a little bit, yeah. Let's just go a quick flip there, because now that leaves Brighton in a bit of a pickle, because you can imagine that Graham Potter is probably going to bring his own staff from Brighton with him to Chelsea. What happens to Brighton now? Are they in free fall after this, or do they go for Brendan Rodgers or Steven Gerrard, who are in trouble at their own clubs? Probably Brendan Rodgers if it was at the two of them.
Whoa, are we saying they don't have the man in the dugout right now?
Adam Lallana.
Now, under contract.
Here's the thing for me. Having gone up through all the coaching badges and all that, surely Brighton has one experienced, highly licensed, pro-licensed coach in their entire club that could do the job temporarily. But no, let's go for Adam Gelhead, nice hair Lallana.
Are you referencing Ted Lasso? You think there's a kit man somewhere lying around Brighton?
Something like that. Surely Graham Potter didn't take all the coaches with him to Chelsea and just left them
at least with Lallana. He's been on the sideline for long enough. He's probably picked up a few good things.
Yeah, but we say this, and I this is a personal thing for me, but so did Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he was crap. And he was sitting on the best bench on the planet, to be fair, for a long time.
That's true.
But the serious question is, Brighton, free fall?
Has to be.
Alan tells us there, Potter took 5 of the backroom staff to Chelsea. I mean, that's just decimating that club, really, isn't it? And their, what did he call it in business? Their knowledge centre, their resource is pretty much gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, I would also, not to shit on Brighton too much here, but what's
we don't shit on Brendan, we just don't bash him.
No, for Brighton.
Oh, Brighton.
What is free fall from Brighton? I mean, is that
relegation again? Probably.
Yeah. I mean, they're a team that could teeter with that most years anyway. But no, I think Brendan Rodgers is a decent shout. I mean, he's got to get sacked first. I don't think he might jump ship, I guess, but he's built a lot there at Leicester, so. I think you'd need to get sacked first. But yeah, that to the flip of Chelsea, who they were like, our guy's out there, we can get him right now. Brighton is something of an attractive job for someone like that. Clearly, they have enough resources to stay up. And if you're a cocky manager who's already in the Premier League, you say, you know what? All they need is me. And
who's cockier than Brendan Rodgers, to be fair?
Hey.
But I will say this, though, for Brighton especially, do you lads agree that they, like Swansea after Brendan, they have a culture of the way they want to play now, so they're kind of restricted in who they're not going to bring Sean Dyche in. They're not going to bring Neil Warnock out of retirement or Roy Hodgson. It's going to be somebody who has that kind of game. And also just think of a positive thing that maybe we get Caicedo now.
Yeah, I would love that. I'll take him in January, please. And I mean, you talk about Brendan. getting sacked or walking away. The way he's talking to the press, he's not far from either. You know, either could happen, and it's getting to that time of year where it's managers hopping in and hopping out, and maybe Graham Potter's the start of it, because it could quite easily start a bit of a shell hopping,
I think so. Let's wrap it up for tonight, because it's been a fantastic conversation. But I want to leave a trivia question for you two lads. Okay, so true or false? Tommy Smith once called Kevin Keegan a man-made player. What do we think?
I'll say true. Why not?
Yeah, I'd go along with that too.
Tommy Smith's a little batty.
It's true. It was on a show that maybe Jamie remember called Yesterday's Heroes, that was on the English channel ITV late on Thursday night, on UTV, pardon me. It was on Granada on a different day, but UTV, just after the Northern Irish football highlights show, with Linfield and Glentoran contesting yet another cup final against each other. But yes, he did call. Tommy Smith reckoned that there was no natural talent in Kevin Keegan at all. He was a man-made player, genetically modified from the fibres of Bob Paisley's cardigan. You learn something new every day.
Well, he did have that beautiful perm on top of his head,
and he smelled
definitely man-made.
And he smelled the Brute aftershave. We know this for a fact because he was sponsored by them. But yes, more fun facts for us. Gentlemen, that was fantastic conversation tonight. I think we should be the think tank for Liverpool Football Club, if not all of the Premier League. Like,
it helps deal with the pain. It's cathartic. It's cathartic. Therapeutic.
It's a common struggle. Yeah, I think. Hey, World Cup time. I know they're not there, but we might need to do a little Jack Charlton special.
Oh, you'd have to. He was special.
They had enough Liverpool guys at Italia 90. I could do an LFC time machine just on them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Starting 88, because we have Jim Beglin still playing down at the time, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But yes, Jamie, always fantastic to talk to you. Cam, always welcome here.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Had a lot of fun.
The usual time and place. You guys out there, we don't have the morning cup of coffee this week because Temujin we're the best ones. The Thursday night lads are the best ones. We show up when it's time to show up.
He might not come back after this.
Seriously, you'll watch this and then he'll cry. We have the Monday podcast. The EPL show is up on YouTube. Go watch. And then we will see you next Thursday, the same bat time, the same bat channel, unless it's different. So it's goodbye from Jamie, goodbye from Cam, and goodbye. There's Gaelic for you, Camerino. Jamie knew what I was saying there.
It sounded Welsh to me. Sorry.
There's the same sentence in Welsh for you. There's phlegm all over my laptop.
Like 5 W's in there and a couple
5 W's and 10 L's.
Yeah.
Couldn't buy a vial to save your life.
Exactly. So guys, we'll see you next Thursday. Join us on American Scouser TV. Like and subscribe, and if not, me, Jamie, will go and live in your house. It doesn't get worse than that. We'll each out of house and home. Okay, so long, guys.
Up the Reds.